Testing, testing, testing. We out in the car again, in a parking lot, of course, on a little bit of a time crunch, of course, because I have a meeting in a little over an hour, and I need about 20 to 30 minutes to record this episode this evening. So we're going to hope that I cannot stumble over my words, and all the people with these loud ass cars that they've muffled so that the revving sounds louder than it actually is, don't interrupt my recording too much. Anyway, not to be too much of a curmudgeon, but if you've seen my community post, my latest one, I mentioned that I pretty much missed a whole week because of some chronic illness flaring up, some bullshit I've had to deal with at uni. You know, being an adult student is not for the faint of heart, but I'm coming so close to the end of my journey. So there's been shit with that. Also, if you happen to follow me on Tumblr, or you talk to me in any other capacity, you might know that we're still recovering from a flash flood that occurred almost 2 months ago. Just a lot of repairs, a lot of remediation, and just stuff. Life is gonna life, right? But, we still here. Thankfully, the chronic illness flare-up wasn't that bad, because I've had ones that will just put me out for weeks on end, so. But anyway, to move into some housekeeping stuff, I do want to work on proper captions for these episodes. I'm going to have to figure out how to, start doing that in a routine that makes sense, because currently I've been using the auto captions, which I know, as someone who deals with disability, I know that sometimes that's fucking annoying. But because I speak the way that I do, the captions are fairly accurate. I've noticed just maybe it's like 99% accurate, the auto captions I've done so far. But as someone who is disabled and who also fucking has done transcription before, that is something that I can work on improving. So I'm going to figure out how to be doing that. But anyway, that's one thing. Two, the other thing you might have seen me make a community post about is a project I teased at on Wednesday, a special project. Now, this was going to do with spirituality, mysticism by way of That's So Raven and Prunella Deegan from Arthur, and all these kind of witchy, freaking crunchy granola spirituality kind of clairvoyant people that you would see in children's media. I wanted to do something with that. But then I realized there might be a better avenue and a better medium for that kind of discussion. So I'm finna keep y'all posted with that as it develops. That's one thing. Another thing that is in progress that I think I may have mentioned in a different video is a big Judy BLUME essay I'm writing that also happens to do with crystal girly shit. All this stuff is in the works. If you are interested in a draft of the Judy BLUME thing, it's going to be talking about the Fudge series. If you're interested in that at all, I can point you in the direction of some of my Tumblr posts I've made about it, and I could even link you the actual draft if you're that eager, but you're probably going to see it pop up on Substack. I'm hoping by my birthday at the end of the month. I'm really hoping. Anyway, housekeeping done. Fuck school. Fuck all this bullshit. if you're a real one, you remember that Vine. Fuck school. Fuck all this bullshit of life. We need the Halloween spirit. We need the Halloween spirit within us. So, last time I was talking about that Anthony Gramuglia vid and the evolution of Halloween in North America. And my opinion was just, as you get older and you move beyond that elementary school, that childhood, teenager age, you have to make your own magic as an adult, whether that's parties, events, movie-thons, whatever the fuck. Me, I've talked about how I usually try to go out for my birthday, or if I'm too broke or tired to do so, then I'll stay in with, some music and or a hot drink and a horror movie. So with music, I like all those classics. I like, the Fresh Prince Nightmare on My Street. I like me a good Thriller. I like me a good Monster Mash. And then even some of the newer classics, like how people will have Shakira, She-Wolf. What's the newer one too? Oh my gosh, Rihanna, Disturbia, that kind of shit. Even China and McLean, Calling All the Monsters. I barely watched Ant Farm on Disney Channel. I was honestly too old for that, but I bumped that shit. I bumped it because my little sister was into it. So I do those classics, and I also like to get a little bit out of the box too. Some other stuff, like I'll listen to Oingo Boingo, which people joke like their whole thing is their Halloween music, but I don't just mean like Weird Science and the really obvious ones from their catalog. If you're not familiar with Oingo Boingo, that's the new wave, like ska fusion band that Danny Elfman helmed in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, I'll be listening to some Oingo Boingo. Another one is the AQUABATS. The AQUABATS Charge, which is 20 fucking years old, that album now. But particularly I think it's the lead single, Fashion Zombies, which, has some nods to Thriller and stuff like that. Just new wave, pop punk, campy superhero silliness. It's so much fun. Check out, did I even say the one Oingo Boingo song I meant? The one Oingo Boingo song I meant was, I need to remember what that shit is called. It's called Heard Somebody Cry. Heard Somebody Cry by Oingo Boingo is a really good Halloween song. Fashion Zombies by the AQUABATS is a really good Halloween song. And, the respective albums that those two songs come from. So that's music. But when it comes to movies, I try to do, same thing, mix of old and new. I know most recently I was rewatching Nope from Jordan Peele. It's brilliant. I saw it in the theater, as I've seen every single Jordan Peele horror film, the ones he's directed, not the ones he produced, but the ones he's directed, I've seen either opening night or opening weekend every single time they came out, and I've had a blast every single time. I want to say Nope is probably my favorite of the three. For me, it's like Nope, Us, and then Get Out, which sounds crazy because Get Out is not a bad movie, but I just like the camp, the spectacle, which is ironic with Nope, but it's the spectacle for me. In the aesthetics and the story, it's the fucking gay energy that Keke Palmer's character has that I embody as well. I swear I was wearing an outfit very, very similar to the one she had on in the beginning of the film to that, my screening that day. But I just been going down a rabbit hole with that shit. And thinking about Peele, so like I'm like an amateur fucking film theorist, right? I'm a writer. I went to school for writing. And I have taken some like intro to film class, and I'm a movie enthusiast. So I know there's auteur theory, but just on a basic level of the word auteur, I know it means like, like author, like talking about distinctive styles from people who put stuff on film, on the silver screen, So, we know Peele has a very, very distinctive style, from the way he does race relations discussions, the way he draws on his whole Steven Spielberg, like Gen Xer upbringing with big, big blockbuster movies. He does that. Also, what's really iconic to me is the way that he repurposes these fucking songs. as someone who loves sampling, collage art, remixes, that kind of stuff, I'm a really, really big fan of that kind of thing. The way he's just recontextualized all these songs is so funny to me. I know Corey Coleman from Double Toasted channel on YouTube, he's made some kind of joke like, oh, we're gonna find out what 80s song he's made scary now when Nope came out, I think. But in terms of other people who have kind of like an auteur sensibility, to me personally, um, Norman Lear, of course. Norman Lear, he has a very distinctive aesthetic. He explores social issues a certain way, or he did. But, you know, when we're talking academically, we speak in present tense. But, like, he does that kind of stuff in his work. He has, like, the whole spin-off shared universe thing, yada, yada, yada. And then it got me thinking also how Dan Schneider, all his bullshit aside, not that it's not important, but all his shit aside, as a creator, he really gave me like Norman Lear of my generation vibes. Even though I grew up with Norman Lear in reruns, in terms of actually being there for the premiere and airing of these things, Dan Schneider's whole oeuvre, it's just really, really interesting. And when I was going down that rabbit hole comparing Lear and Schneider, I'm thinking I'm like some mastermind who's like, oh my God, he's the Norman Lear of Gen Z. And then come to find out people was making that comparison 20, 30 years ago, you know? But it's just interesting. I'm a big fan of seeing people build their canon. So obviously, like, Norman Lear's stuff was pretty much done by the time I came into the universe. Dan Schneider, I got to see build up his stuff as I was a baby and growing up. And then now Jordan Peele, I saw him when he was in his comedy bag back in the day. And then I saw the transition to horror. And I remember I thought it was a joke at first. I thought it was a joke. And then when Get Out came out and became the whole phenomenon it was, and then when Us came out, and then when Nope came out, the smile on my face grew wider and wider with each premiere. Because I love seeing him build this canon and just make his mark. It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. So I know there was something else I wanted to talk about connected to like comedy or something. It was comedy in general. I guess because of the way that like Jordan Peele moved from comedy to another avenue, how comedy can bridge different things. I was thinking about how there's a kayfabe to comedy, like reality TV and like wrestling. So if you follow me on other platforms, especially on Tumblr, you may have seen me talk about these little mini essays about the way that the whole reality TV aspect of wrestling is what fascinates me about wrestling. And then just like all the parallels between these different things. And then, so like basically, I remember back in the day, I grew up liking reality TV before I liked pro wrestling. And I knew reality TV when I got to tween age. Like when I was a little kid, I thought it was all real. Then when I got to middle school age, I had understood how contrived it was. Then I still enjoyed it because it was people way older than me who understood it was contrived and watched it. So it would piss me off when people would be like, you know that's fake, right? You know that's fake, right? I'm like, yeah, do you know that fucking Superman, Batman is fake? Do you know that Child's Play is fake? Like, this is all fake. It's just people acting a fool. I'm just fascinated with the lengths that people will go to act a fool on television. And I like seeing the blurred lines between reality and fantasy because they are playing with real life stuff and then embellishing it. So if you hear what I'm saying, you see the parallels between reality TV, you see how like real life embellishment that applies to wrestling. And then of course that applies to stand-up comedy. So I've always loved stand-up comedy. And I go through waves where I'll like just be really obsessed with it. Currently, um, I've been listening to Ali SIDDIQ. That nigga, oh my God, he is so funny. I'd heard of him before, but it's like I just discovered the salt and pepper diner routine by John Mulaney in 2025 because I just found out about Mexicans got on boots. So as I was just going through the different versions of Mexicans got on boots, because that's like a decade-long routine that he's changed over the years, I remember thinking that fucking, what is it called? It's just interesting thinking about how there's like that social contract between the audience and the performer, because we know that the way that he and other people are telling these stories is not necessarily exactly how it went down, but it's close enough. And as long as it makes you laugh, does it really matter whether or not that's exactly how it went down? So that's the same thing with like wrestling. Oh, does it really matter that that guy would not actually be able to pin that guy in real life? As long as the story is entertaining, that's all that fucking matters. I know I read like some articles that were delving more into this phenomenon. Let me see if I could pull up the damn screenshot I made without this cutting out on me while I'm recording. Because I know there was one guy who was literally a stand-up comic who grew up with wrestling, who just found the parallels really poignant himself. Okay, so this is coming from a Substack article from Michael Halcombe. His article is called Kayfabe in Stand-Up Comedy, The Performer-Audience Agreement. And he talks about a lot of that same stuff where like he had that sudden realization on stage about how there's that social contract about, yeah, we know that you're kind of bullshitting us, but it's really funny bullshit, so we'll buy it. And I also remember there was this really cute quote from him that was summing up just how much I love, like everything I love about wrestling as a grown-ass adult who's falling into it now. Of wrestling, Halcombe says, quote, "It was part circus, part soap opera, part bar fight with glitter and men in tights, knee-high boots, and makeup fighting over a belt." I'm like, my nigga, that is, I love that. I love writers. I love artists. There's another article about like intersection of comedy and pro wrestling from Vice Sports, by Mike Pialucci. It was an interview. And then it's about the wrestler Colt Cabana. I'm not familiar with him personally. You know I'm new. But Colt says of him trying to like find those links between comedy and pro wrestling. He says this of like this other performer he was studying. He says, quote, "He's a performer and he's taking the idea of stand-up comedy and he's taking that wherever he wants to that he thinks is funny. But it's still within the guise of comedy. That's when I kind of realized that as a wrestler, I'll be in wrestling, but I can do whatever I want and it will still be within the guise of professional wrestling. That's when I started kind of realizing the similarities between stand-up comedians and just artists in general to professional wrestlers. When I started studying, not even studying, but finding these different people like Flight of the Conchords, Howard Kramer, Dimitri Martin, these personalities who would take stand-up in different directions, it kind of made me a little more free as a wrestler when I realized that. And that was really poignant to me because I didn't quote it, but in the Halcombe thing, he said something about, where'd it go? This is why I'm gonna write a proper essay about this later on. It's gonna be so fucking funny. But he said something very, very similar from the perspective of a comedian. So it's just, I find the way that all these things like crisscross, intersect, and just line up, it's so fascinating. This is why I went to school, bro. Like, I love me a good compare and contrast. I love me a good compare and contrast. Just all this shit is connected. If you want to read more, I'm finna link some of my mini essays about the intersections between wrestling and different media. So we move on to the resource recs, which conveniently, I mean by design, they are about wrestling, comedy news, reality TV. So wrestling, 2 channels I recommend. If you're already a wrestling fan, these are already on your radar. But if you're like a newbie like me, or just curious, even if you don't really give a fuck about wrestling, Stevie Richards Show on YouTube and Maven Huffman on YouTube. They are both former WWE wrestlers. Very, very insightful, very, very empathetic. Love them to bits. High production quality. They're not just giving you the same takes and same bullshit that other people are giving you. For comedy news, 2 channels. Too Lazy to Try, like with the number 2. That channel on YouTube. He's very, very entertaining. I think he has like a his Avi is a George Costanza this thing, and he tends to talk about like a lot of like the macho white guys and like the Roganverse people, but he's not like a shill for them. He's just kind of telling it like it is, and I appreciate that because I'm not a fan of the Roganverse, but as someone who's into comedy, I like to keep up with what people are doing. So, and like it's not just Roganverse. He talks about all comedy, but because the whole Roganverse is so huge right now, that tends to take up a lot of what he discusses. He's very snarky, funny, and like I said, gives it to you like it is. The other comedy channel is Comedy Hype. Now he focuses, well, I shouldn't say just he because it's a network, but they focus primarily on the Black comedy space and anybody adjacent to that. Very, very fun. Sometimes I have qualms with the way they conduct interviews because I think they don't always ask tactful questions. But again, they get legends on there, including Ali SIDDIQ, who I told you I've been obsessed with lately. And of course, the last section for reality TV, I recommend BlackFemininity TV, the channel, and For the Nostalgia on YouTube. These are both Black women who focus a lot on like millennial content, that heyday of the VH1, MTV stuff, in addition to other film and just media that Black girls, Black femmes would enjoy. I know, who was it? I think Black Femininity TV did a really, really funny video on Wendy Williams' antics. This is before Wendy started having her public health issues, but it was just a compilation, or at least I think it's before, but it wasn't like making fun of her issues. It was just documenting some of Wendy's messiest radio moments and messiest feuds. And then For the Nostalgia, I think she did all of the first season of Flavor of Love Charm School with Monique. Like she did a whole entire recap of that. I know she's done other shows, but that's the one that I'm remembering first. Wow. I can't believe we got all through that. I'm hoping that when I finished, I hit end on this damn thing, that the recording captured properly, because people have been staring at me in this parking lot ranting. But I had fun talking tonight. I really, really appreciate everyone who continues to listen. And I'll see y'all in the next one.